All right, I'm going to call the Tuesday, May 25th Riverfront Improvement Commission to order. I think the agenda is fine, so we can actually start out with approval of the minutes.
I have one correction. I
Oh.
think Dee was here.
I was here.
Came, yeah, halfway through. Did you guys?
Is she on there?
I came halfway through.
Not on my sheet.
You didn't think I was here?
He was just talking.
I was tardy.
Yeah, we were at a meeting.
All right. So Kelly looked at these. I think that we're good. Are we good?
I'm okay.
Okay. Well, Neil, he wasn't here. Where were we?
I was getting married.
Our young man got married, so he's a totally different person this month. So congratulations again. All right, so we had a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll move on to the finance, which is the disbursements. Are there any questions before action? Motion to approve? There's a second? All in favor? Aye. Those are approved. All right, well, now it's going to become the Steve Show. We have 3 leases, 2 that are new, but we're going to take action, and a renewal.
That's right. We'll go in the order. Here, Chill Eats, I sent the memo here late last week. There, you can hear me. Late last week about this. I think this is exciting news for us, for the Freight House. A long time coming, as the memo indicated, all of those things. I'm particularly happy that that we have that business savvy, that creative ownership, but also, probably even more important than anything, next to sort of the knowledge that this is going to work and they're going to, be responsible, monthly rent-paying tenants of ours. But all that aside, the fact that these new tenants get what we're trying to do, what we are doing, have been a part of that, continue to be a part of that by way of their connection, Lori's connection with the Freight House Farmers Market through programming and all of that. I almost feel a little fortunate that that we get to continue that because for at least the short term, that all remains the same. And so she's kind of pulling some double duties here, but we benefit because programmatically the Freight House and particularly the farmers market with the first month down, the first month of the outdoor season nearly completed, we haven't seen the crowds like this ever. These numbers are just they're amazing, and we know
you can't find a parking place.
Right,
The lot in front of the Figgy all the way down
Right.
to.
Although we won't want to dissuade people from coming down. There
Oh, no.
are parking places. There are. That's right. There are some adjacent areas on the ends, and also there are some opportunities to, explore Sundays and perhaps Wednesday markets as well. But certainly, it's pretty fun to see, and it's not exclusively tied to just market Saturdays either. We're a lot of use of the new deck. We're seeing some business resurgence. And I think that the addition of this particular much needed food element, they have started just recently with the food piece, and that's important to provide some synergy with the rest of what's going on in the building. Again, we've talked before about how that's important. You could put any old thing in there. We don't want to do that. We've been careful through the last many years about what is placed in there and how it all interrelates. I think we continue to be mindful of that, and I think we will reap the benefits for the public on this. And so I look for nothing short of great things, and in addition to that, lots of events too, because Lori is just that type of person who kind of will call up and be like, okay, you know, like let's schedule Mac down, or let's do this, or whatever. She gets the big picture, and it's positive for the entire Riverfront and the community. So with that, you are seeing this tonight, but I'm asking for your approval as well.
So let me just make sure I understand this. This is actually a 3-year lease.
It is.
So at the price of the last renter?
Correct.
Is that correct? So we're not seeing a change in the rental?
I
which
do
is
want to,
awesome.
I want to add something to that too. So when I looked back, the way we had the last one structured, I've simplified this one. This is straight away rent. The last one was a base rent. It was a different time, but it was a base rent plus a percentage of gross sales. And we really, I think, want to get out of that,
No, we have to.
business, you know. And when I did some math and looking back at the last few years prior to their departure, this rent that we're charging now, when I look at the totals, will be more at, and in some cases, a couple years more than what we derived back, in some of the better years a few years ago. And then of course, there were a couple years that remain unpaid. So
At the Freight House also, they pay their portion of the taxes because they're a for-profit, so property taxes are assessed to the city because of them being
and
for-profit.
utilities. It's
And
so, and utilities are in addition to this base rent of
Right,
$2,000
and
a
so
month.
it'll be quite a bit different than what we look at next.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I can only say that they have ice cream for adults as flavors, which is pretty cool. Not with alcohol in it. I mean, it's kind of an interesting little mix. Can't wait to see food. I just think with Front Street there, with an outside bar and an inside bar on Saturdays, more food that's possible around them, I think is important, and to kind of get it where it's a point where it's more family friendly, that, that both sides of it, a little bit more family friendly kind of foods, I think is, I think we get the right angle. I hope and think she'll be successful.
With that, we won't have to worry about it passing.
All right, so, is there questions, or do we have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Neil?
I missed Randall wasn't getting audio, so I missed the motion. Hold
Oh,
on.
it was Kelly
Sorry.
and Neil.
Okay, thank you,
All
sorry.
right. All those in favor? Aye. All right, it's approved. All right, let's move on to the massage therapist. Heartland Healing.
If I could just have 1 second, I'm not sure why she's not getting audio here. Randall is on the line and is the only one, but I'm trying to. I'll try to, we'll go on to the next one, yes. So Heartland Healing, we have a single 200 square foot suite on the second floor of Union Station that most recently, well, currently is storage space, but most recently had been part of the Rock River Family Office lease space, like it was an add-on for them. And so received a inquiry about our interest in renting that out for a single use. And that is an individual who is being relocated out of 601 Brady, is where she's been for years as a massage therapist. And that building is changing ownership. And so I made sure I did some checking with some new regulations and everything around here for the city of Davenport, but from a zoning perspective and all other things, it's fine. And it is not there's just one individual, and it's not even a full-time kind of situation, and so it's not a hard use, if you will. So there is a common lobby on the second floor as well, so outside of this space, and so I don't really see any problems. I've touched base with some existing adjacent tenants as well, and done the walkthrough and all of that, and I don't see any issues. There are, the one thing about the building, as a small aside, when the first floor tenant, whomever that is, but in this case it's Visit Quad Cities, when they aren't there, there's a different way into the building, because otherwise you're traversing through another tenant's space, and so it's a totally separate, protected entrance into the building, and we always make sure everyone's aware of that, and she had no issue with that either. So, but that's also how you would access not only the stairwell, but the restrooms for that section of the building and the elevator as well. So, but this is, the only other thing is the walls were just a bit beaten up, and so we're gonna have them painted, and I had to make sure I move some things out of there that we had been using kind of it as a little repository for some other where we didn't have a place for some other things. So we found a home for those things, and with tonight's approval, she will be ready to move in June 1st. So.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. No, same sign. Okay, you got that one. Now let's hear about our renewal.
So then, adjacent to this space that I just described is another suite you're probably familiar with. This is a shared suite between the Mississippi Valley Blues Society and Rita Rawson. And Rita has two offices, and then behind the suite, and within that suite area are 3 additional offices that the Blues Society has. And so we're simply renewing the existing agreement for Rita's space. And so they have a common area as well that they sort of share, and it seems to be working out, they don't share normal hours either with one another, and so they don't seem to ever have problems that are at least conveyed to me. And so, that's important as far as the mixture of the tenancy as well. But this is, she has seen the draft document. This is not for approval tonight. This one can go the normal course, and you would see it up for your approval next meeting.
So Steve, I noticed this one's just 2 years. Is that what she usually renews
That's
at?
what I kind of defer.
Does it fit with the Blues group? I mean, like if they both came up and we wanted one tenant, or are they?
No, because I think right now it didn't start that way, although we have an opportunity. Blues Society, I think in just a couple more months, theirs comes up, and so we could
we
do
move
it
them
too and try
together
to have it, right.
I think that would be better for us.
It
in
does make
case-
it a little easier in case at some point there's some
Right.
interest, yeah.
Yeah.
Did Rita just lease that for 1 year before?
I feel like I'd have to look, but I feel like it's been 2 for a couple of times, or at least a couple of years here.
She's been there a while.
Right. She did start out with just a single office, and then we did an addendum for the additional office, so.
Are there any other questions for this? If not, we'll,
She's 135 or 176.
Yeah, what's highlighted there, yeah. So it totals 311 total square feet, and then the other three are, 460, I think offhand, I'm
and
remembering.
she pays $1, right, a square foot? Yeah,
Um,
versus 83 cents.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes out to.
I guess I asked you when I called you today, and I'm going to just maybe state it. It appears at this point, with our rent from everyone who is there, they don't pay utilities. We have to have another tenant to come out even. We're not even yet. We have to really have a tenant to cover all our utilities in that building. So we need to know that. I mean, we're just not there yet in this building.
That one's a harder building than the Freight House
Oh,
to
yeah.
divide up, and so we've never sought to do so. And with the loss of the, I call it the larger tenant on the second floor, that has switched that pro forma out a little bit, yes. It's
Well,
made it lopsided. so.
Let's be honest, I mean, the confidence of the tenants that we're going to save that building in a flood's not really high. And so until we have permanent flood protection that we know without a doubt, somebody can read how to do it, I think we're going to have a little issue getting it with a tenant that really, is investing there. I mean, we got to be feeling pretty lucky with who we have right now. So I think that's our main focus is to, bring the stability back to the building. So we can look for a tenant there that's more permanent and can pay more than $1 a square foot.
You know, when I got on the commission, that building was vacant. I'm talking about demolishing it, and this commission saved it.
That's a long time ago, Bill. But then you can say that. All right, so that'll be up next month. You want to talk about refresh there, Steve?
Absolutely. So great news, really. So as part of the whole Riverfront refresh that I've now talked about for the last couple of meetings, continues to be an important part of what we're about in 2021, both from a capital standpoint with some new some freshening up of the riverfront, both aesthetically, but also some, there's been some addition of some new fencing. And I mean, if you've been down at all and around, you've seen some of some nice, popping and some nice additions to how it's looking. Okay, obviously our goal is to keep it looking fresh as well. But I wrote 2 grants a couple months ago to the local authorities. Haven't heard from SCRA, but have heard from the RDA. And we were successful in getting full funding for our request for $20,000 for what I called Riverfront Refresh Programming. And I'll just take a minute to describe that. And so I took a tack to have in my mind Quinlan Court, the new Quinlan Court, and programming as a very essential part of this year and next year. So looking at our budgets and what we need to be thinking about in terms of the next 2 years, not just a couple of weeks in this year and say we've done it and let's move on, but have a deliberate approach to how we animate our riverfront. I took 3 areas for RDA in particular, and one was Mercado, because that was early on trying to strengthen. All of these kind of have the marketing and specifically sort of the entertainment component to it in mind, using the local, understanding that the pandemic wiped out, sort of a lot of the local entertainers, and we were gig free for so long, right? I mean, so thinking in terms of like the RME and Quad City Arts and independent soloists, acoustic soloists. So with those as your backdrop, and not just music, by the way, also thinking about visual performance artistry as well, maybe things that we haven't even seen, and using this venue, this new outdoor venue as that backdrop. All those things tied together. So Mercado, because here's a Mercado in El Rio, Market on the River. This is ours. This is for Davenport to take hold of and to increase the number of events that we're going to have. So this year, there's only so many that can be handled with some new staff and some new commitments that they have with a new indoor facility that they're launching as well. But that will only increase the number of times that we have. But also, having at least weekly programming events at this venue. And I know initially in our minds, we think of this as sort of the food truck court. But I challenge each of us to think a little bit differently, and let me just explain that. Doesn't mean there won't be food trucks there. I think there will be, but I think that this venue should be looked at in an entirely 180 degree different way. I think the programming should lead the excitement about this and the people to this venue. The food will come. I think that the venue is, if you have a moment, sometimes just go down there and just stand there, and it's unreal how a place can sort of take you. You don't even feel like you're where you are. It's amazing to me. It's like you're transported to some other place entirely. And it just, when you do sort of this panoramic view, and then when you take into account some adjacency where you have, the former casino parking to the riverfront, now it's green space, and you can envision that you could stage some events in both together, like the same event. Yes, there's a railroad track that bisects the area, but yes, we know how to cross them. We can handle that. The beauty of this whole space is pretty amazing at this juncture in time, and knowing that it could, should become something, will become something even better, is pretty encouraging as well. So getting people down there to support that, but also, having various, I was on the phone today with the programming person for Quad City Arts. We're talking about various creative ideas. I mean, we're talking about not even just in the nice weather days, but, we around here can stomach sometimes in the colder months. It's what we've tried to do and been encouraged to do, and Alderman Grip has challenged us with such things as Ice Stravaganza, and even Chris Kindlemark, in December and January respectively. Yes, there are periods where we all want to stay inside for, several, days or what have you, but generally around here, there are also some programmatic ideas that we can make use of as well, and we want to encourage that through programming. And I think that then through that programming, the people will attract different people, right? Which is what we want to do to the riverfront. And from there, I think we will then attract the food, if you will. Because what's happening right now, to be very honest with you, as I've reached out to various food trucks, and there's fewer of them, first of all, that made it through last year. And the second point I want to raise to you is they have found their niche in many cases. They are connected to private businesses and are less, and I'm painting with a wide brush. I'm not saying there aren't one, here and there some interest, but to be able to talk someone into coming to and testing out a brand new area and saying, here, come here, we'll bring people to this space. It's unproven. We need to sort of prove it first. And so I believe it will come. We will be able to prove it. I have no doubt. I'm up to that challenge. But I think that we just, in so doing, need to just change that a little bit, because in the end, that's what we're trying to do anyway. And for so long, we've had in our mind that this is the food truck court, right? Well, it's more than that. I think it sells it short. It's an outdoor venue, and the programming should really excite the space or ignite the space, so to speak. So I think that is underscored by the fact that this grant was well received. It's, like I said, a 2-year, and the third component of it, by the way, was funding for movies on the Mississippi, which was something I've talked to you all about, but this will help us, this will offset a lot of the costs to be able to do 3 for this year and 3 for next year in LeClaire Park. The movie rights and some of the marketing related to that. So it's kind of a dual thing. How I wrote the grant was to try to not just accomplish what we need funding-wise or to match what we were able to do, in addition to like summer concert series and some of the things we already do programmatically, but to also then frame it in a way that understands what the community has been through and what the performance and art community has been through and is in need of coming out of it in this year. And so I'm pretty excited because while it's not perfectly defined what we're going to see, I think we're also going to be looking at like sort of this year planning, a few weeks and then, getting through those while we're planning the next few weeks. I think that's how it's going to have to kind of roll this year. We'll be better suited for more of a long range one next year, but I think we'll be testing some things out. We know that there's interest in certain things like, classic car shows and, things like that, but there's other things out there as well that can speak to many different people, both musically as well as from an artistry standpoint. And there's some other ideas too. I've reached out to all of our tenants, our brick and mortar tenants, and I intend to reach out to some adjacent brick and mortar tenants of the downtown, because I think that something to consider is, if we can last year prove that, a lot of people still needed to eat, right? And they just found different ways to have food delivered to them, unique ways. Some found themselves doing that on the fly. Well, again, I think there are businesses downtown that could easily deliver to this venue while there's programming going on and not be threatened, by the venue either, right? So we don't want to get into that age-old dilemma or war of food trucks versus brick and mortar. I'm highly aware of those sentiments. I think we can have all of it coexist together. And so by bringing all people in that are wanting to be brought in, I think we can make that happen. And so to me, it's the programming that drives it.
Can this grant be used for something other than cultural programming? And the reason why I ask that is that there, a part of the Downtown Partnership Strategic Plan is these pop-up marketplaces, I don't know where they are and that happening, but can that money be used to maybe seed the ability to do that? I know they don't have a place yet in the downtown. It was supposed to find, these empty spaces, but it would be interesting to use the Quinlan in an enterprise economic way for the downtown versus just an entertainment way.
I'd say we're already on that track with Mercado and then also with the QC Empowerment Network.
Are you bringing them down to Quinlan now? Or are
yes. No, both of those will be at Quinlan.
But I think if we could figure out how to add to that, it would help, I think, both the strategy of the downtown, because that's one of their interests, and also help shore up the businesses on that end of the town in terms of, and you don't really need food if you're going there to buy things and look at things and then walk the downtown. So it would be interesting if you could see if that's possible, because I could see that there might be some things like traffic control and some other things that might be needed
from time to
in those
time,
kind of
depending on the
events.
event.
at least at the beginning.
It's small ways of looking at things too. For example, in Red, White, and Boom, when we know the the riverfront is, just everyone is going to be there, right? We are staging, from 6 to 9:30. We'll have kids zone, Parks and Rec, and some other of our community partners will be having kids activities, family activities. We'll have Identity Crisis, a local band up on stage at the band shell from 6 to 9:30, fireworks at 9:30. There'll be more about this, but I wanted to let you know. But we're also, I'm working with Lori with the Farmers Market to introduce a moonlight market. We're going to basically have a micro market, a farmer's market with food and some craft kinds of things, and we're going to place that along Beiderbecke and in Quinlan Court, because we know that all of that area is going to fill up with people. And so on the perimeter, if you will, we're going to have this activity take place. And I think it's going to be well received, so much so we're already planning a couple other nights where it's just going to be a couple moonlight markets. We've wanted to try to nighttime market anyway, and we're going to use that as a test run on July 3rd. So these are some great opportunities. Not everything's going to work, but I think we have to be willing to try some things here.
Sounds good. Bill, you have a question?
Yes, I do. The things that you were describing, Steve, are you talking about the old, what we used to call the flex lot? Is that what you were, that area?
Yes.
And my second question is, so do we have any programs lined up for this summer yet or not?
Yes. And so, for example, this Sunday from 4 to 7 will be the first of monthly. The fourth Sunday of every month, starting this Sunday, will be the QC, it's called QC Empowerment Open Air Market, QC Empowerment Network Open Air Market. It's Black-owned business network open air market. They had 3, I think, last year. I worked with them on at the Freight House in the parking lot there. And I talked to them about coming to Quinlan because, one, the power sources are more, well, they have some, and down in that other area, they don't. And we want programming here, and it's really a nice fit. And when we did the walkthrough, they loved it. And so they're going to be, May through September at least, maybe October, that last Friday. So we've confirmed that. Then the second Saturday of the month from 5 to 9 is the Mercado Market, which is the Hispanic market. There will be, this is, if you've ever heard in Moline, they have Mercado on 5th. They have that every Friday in Moline. We will work towards that in Davenport. It will take us a couple years to have that, but in the meantime, we're going to do a monthly market here, and it will be a very large event starting on Saturday, June 12th. And you'll be getting more information about that, but mark that down because that's 5 to 9, and at 5 o'clock will be the official ribbon cutting of that lot, of that venue, combined with right away that initial Mercado event. And so, but just as an aside, that night, I mean, what we already are planning for is, the food vendors and such will be in Quinlan Court, and we'll have, tables and chairs and games and all that in the grass area along the riverfront, kind of just to the south. That night there will be, band, and there'll be, dancers. I mean, it's a big to do. It's can't promise that at everything that goes on in there every time, but I think that is what we're talking about as far as possibilities for that space and even other things. I hope that kind of answers your question. I mean, there are many other conversations underway right now, but definitively those are the ones that are scheduled.
Okay, so is that all, Steve?
And then just one other thing, since I just mentioned that 5 o'clock on Saturday, June 12th, and of course we would like all of you to be able to attend if you're able. the night before at 4 o'clock at the Freight House, Chill Eats, now that we've approved the lease, will have its official ribbon cutting as well.
All right, so we don't have anybody from Parks, right? Tegan's here?
No,
Okay.
not tonight, I guess.
All right, so that takes us to public with business.
Yep.
Yep.
I didn't have anything too planned to talk about, but wanted to talk about what I noticed happening on the riverfront since I was here last time. And it was between the Dillon Fountain and what's remaining of our landing, which is the area next to the old Living Inn. There were like a series of four. You maybe approved it, or maybe you've seen it. Series of four, like 80-foot long handrails that block the view from Dillon Fountain to the river. It's almost like you've got all these prison bars that are there, and it's totally without need, as far as I can tell. I don't know who planned that or who designed that, but I think probably it's something that shouldn't be on our riverfront much longer. Don't know how expensive, couldn't have been too expensive. What it is some handicap ramps, accessible ramps that go from the raised area there, up to the raised train tracks down to the Living Inn area. Obviously, there needs to be some type of an accessible ramp there, but I can't think of a less thoughtful and beautiful way to connect our downtown to the river, and that's probably the most important place for it to be. So I think hopefully that will be rectified in the next few years, perhaps with an overall plan that we're going to have of the riverfront. If you haven't seen it, please go down there and look at it with some fresh eyes. I think you may agree with me right there. This month, Jo Helen, my girlfriend, and I went to a city in the Midwest that's over the last 40 years has experienced the loss of its major industry, and its population has gone down to roughly half of what it used to be. And I'm not talking about Detroit, I'm talking about Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh, you would not realize looking at that city its central city has lost so many people, and it's lost the steel industry. They have a beautiful, beautiful relation between its rivers and its downtown. It's something we're going to go back again. We just had a delightful time. If you haven't been to Pittsburgh lately, I advise everyone to go see it. You may see with fresh eyes what Davenport, the Quad Cities, can have for a relation between its river, its city, and its people. One of the things that I was extremely happy to see was that just in the middle of the week, their riverfront, there were hundreds of people just in the middle of the week, all ages. Most were young people. Came down. They have this beautiful fountain where the two rivers come together and the Ohio River is created. And parking is terrible. We're talking about parking in our freight house. Parking is terrible there. You've got to pay. If you're lucky to, $10 for parking, you may have to walk a couple blocks to get to it. Didn't deter these people. They got a beautiful fountain. There are people that are playing music down there. People walking their animals or dogs, and and good conversation. Kids playing games. I mean, it's just a really wonderful thing. That's what we ought to aspire to. Jo Helen and I went to downtown Davenport's riverfront the other day, and it's as beautiful as ever, but it's as dead as ever. The Levy Inn, that building right there, 5 years ago, I said, when they proposed to make that Quinlan spot, I said, why are we spending all this money for a food truck area when we could renovate that? We could have a ferry between our two cities, Rock Island and Davenport, have live music on it constantly in the evenings. It'd be a real draw. Now that the Viking and other cruise lines are coming, it's something that would astonish them. But as they walk over to us, there'll be that Quinlan space, which is beautiful as it is. It's essentially it's a glorified parking lot, and just shows what you can do in a glorified parking lot, but it's a $3 million parking lot. I think the people in Davenport would have liked to have seen, as they've said since the Sky Bridge was made, a building at the end of that bridge to nowhere. The design that I had, it was just something I came up with was, Russell said it's a $10 million project. Okay, maybe it is, but perhaps half of that could have been supported by rents. So it becomes a $5 million project. That's only $2 million more than that glorified parking lot. I think we're missing out on something. And that's all I'm gonna say right now. But we'll talk next month. Thanks.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Someone?
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.